Let me share a little story with you. A few years ago, I remember speaking to a dear friend of mine who had a teenage son, and he was going through some difficulty and a difficult patch with his son. And I remember asking him what the problem was, and he said, "Look, he just doesn't listen to me." And he was complaining about his son for a number of different reasons and the issues they were having. So I asked him. I said, "But why does he have to listen to you? Why do you assume he has to listen to you?" And he was quite perplexed by the question. His response was, "Because I did everything for him. I've worked hard, and I've done the hours, and I've spent my life just trying to give him a better life. So I deserve by default that I be respected and I be listened to." So I asked him, and I said, "So based upon that same logic, isn't it the case that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never failed to take care of you? Allah never failed to take care of us. He gave us oxygen. He gave us things that we need that are more essential than what you did for your son. So if the logic is that if somebody does something good to you, you should reciprocate and be obedient to them, where is our obedience before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?" My message today, my brothers and sisters, I know that one of the greatest calamities of this ummah is the fact that we have neglected the prayer. The prayer is our staple, it's our connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And unfortunately, too many of us, and majority of us I would argue, don't pray. And we don't see why we should pray. So the first step to realizing why we should pray is for you to realize your relationship with Allah is that you are His servant. And you have a tremendously merciful Lord who has never failed to take care of you. He gave and He gives you from places and in situations that you can't imagine and we're completely oblivious to. When we start to realize the favours of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a natural response then is to say that I want to worship my Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the prayer therefore becomes a manifestation, it becomes an articulation of gratitude. It becomes a personification of thankfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this should be the attitude of a believer when he prays to Allah. He should say Alhamdulillah. And that's the starting of the prayer, which means all praise be to Allah because of, in brackets, all that He does for me subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the first problem is that we don't pray, and therefore we should pray based upon the idea of recognizing the favors that Allah does for us. But then how do we get to start praying? And most people find this a burdensome activity. I want to remind you of a hadith Qudsi in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that my servant does not fail to draw close to me except through his fara'id, his obligations that I have placed upon him. And when he masters his obligations, he continues to draw close to me with supererogatory, with extra acts of worship. But the first thing Allah tells us in this beautiful hadith, which I want to impress upon you and I remind myself of, is the importance of the obligations, my brothers and sisters. And often what we do is we overburden people that are struggling to connect to religion anyway with all these extra types of worship, and we tell them that Isha has 17 rak'ahs and in Zuhr has 12 or 14 rak'ahs depending on how you define things. So I want to tell you, and I want to give you this message, that if you're struggling to pray, I want you to just pray the fard. So I want you to pray 5 times a day, and I want you to just pray the fard of each prayer. And fard means the obligation. So start in Fajr and pray 2 rak'ahs. And at the moment, this is the best time to start praying, because when the winter starts and the days are short and the nights are long, it means that most of us are able to wake up and still pray. Currently, sunrise is happening almost at 8 o'clock. So this is the ideal time, because most of us that are going to colleges and universities and work are able to start getting into a routine of prayer when it's not too burdensome for us. But I want you to just pray the fard. When it comes to Dhuhr, I want you to pray 4 rak'ahs, 4 cycles of prayer, and that's it. No sunnahs before or after. When it comes to Asr, you pray 4. When it comes to Maghrib, you pray 3. And when it comes to Isha, the big one, I want you to pray just 4. Start with that, my brothers and sisters. Start with that. And if you're a Hanafi, you may pray the 3 witr as well. In the other schools, even the witr isn't necessary. It's considered a sunnah. But I want you to start with this, because the most important thing is that you start praying to Allah and not do it out of a burden, do it out of the recognition of your Lord's dominion over you and the favors that He's done for you, to say thanks to Him. This will give your life a beauty. This will give your life meaning. It will give your life structure. And when you've mastered that, continue to draw close to Allah with these other supererogatory acts of worship, which will then come from you from a place of extra need to be close to Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.